This is the Out of State Hunter podcast, and today, or YouTube channel, Out of State Hunter YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about a topic that I think is pretty important. What is it? Regulations. So, when I prepare for a podcast with some of these states, or all of these states actually, the first thing that I do is I go to the regulation and I start digging to try to find as much information as I can. And I don't only do that for the podcasts, I also do that if it's a state that I want to hunt in, or it's a state that I obviously want to hunt in, but I drew a tag in that state and now I need to gather more information. So what I want to do, I'm going to flip the camera here. I'm going to share my screen or whatever. And I want to walk through just a couple of the important topics. I think they're important topics for these regulations. We'll take a quick look at them. There'll be a more in-depth actual audio podcast that's related to these two states. So I'm going to talk about Colorado and New Mexico briefly. I'm going to do a whole podcast on Colorado. I'm going to do a whole podcast on New Mexico, but it just turns into such a long video if I do them on here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to share my screen and then we'll start talking just briefly about these regs so you got an idea of what I look for. Okay, so we should be in the shared screen mode here. Hopefully you can see what I can see. And like I said, so I was going to talk, the brand new 2024 Colorado big game regulation came out, proclamation. They call them, they go by both names. And then we also have the new New Mexico regulation. So just a couple of quick things that I want to talk about here. First, where would you find these if you were going to look for them? Well, Colorado, um, you might notice I have a really big orange pointer over here, and that's to help you follow along with me. So in Colorado, they post their regulation on their homepage, and you can find it right now because it's brand new. It's kind of scrolling through this scroll bar at the top, and you can see there's the new big game and the new sheep and goat. We're only going to talk about the big game today. The information is very well, the information is not similar, but the way that they laid out the regulations are almost identical. So you find the same type of information in the same order. But so you can get to this from here if you just click in this scroll box, or if for whatever reason that's gone and they put something else in there, you can go up here to things to do, and then you click on hunting, and you'll find a lot more information about hunting in Colorado, but you will find the regulations here, and then there's a video that talks about their their regulation. So I already have this open, but you just click on that, and I already have it open here. But we're going to come back to that. So New Mexico, sorry, let's go back to the top. So in New Mexico, same thing on their homepage. They have some scrolls right here. You can see you have your mandatory harvest reports, all the important information. The big game draw is open. That's why we're talking about this. It's open right now. And then they have their new publication, and that is also on the homepage. Or you can find that through some of these drop down menus. I'm not going to go through all that right now. Just be aware that it's right now it's on this homepage. So you can click on that and you can open it up. And I already have that opened up here. Um, okay. Anyway, my point to this is that every state has their hunting regulations somewhere on their state agency website. Usually it's under like a things to do, hunting or big game rules or whatever. You can find that. So let's talk Colorado really quick. I did this a little bit earlier today and I ended up with a 45-minute video, and I don't want to do that again. So I want to tell you, first thing that I do when I come to these regulations, whether it be for the podcast or if it's something I want to hunt in, I look at these first few pages because they're all of these states, all of them that I've done the research on and that I've recorded with. When I go into these regulations, important updates and new regulations, new rules are always located toward the front of the regulation. So this one has this important update here in Colorado. You can see that there's been severe weather, winter, license reduction for elk. There's some pronghorn stuff going on over here. And then Colorado has some pictures. I guess they want to show you the type of game that they have in their state. They have great game. Look at that. It's a big old elk. Very nice moose. All right. First thing we're going to get to is the table of contents. There's a lot on this page that I think is important. Up here in the top left corner, you have the What's New 2024 at a glance. I always go to that and I always research what's new in a state, whether it's a state I had known nothing about, or if it's a state like Colorado, for example, where I've hunted many, many times. I always look at what's new because it's going to give me an idea of changes that were made, and potentially it's going to affect my application strategy. Most states have some sort of plan your hunt, or there's something that involves like it's kind of a step-by-step things to look for. And then we got license information, terms, definitions, your license options, application and preference points, all of that general information, big game species identification chart, uh, hunting laws. This is very, very important. I always go look at those hunting laws. If it's a state that I have not hunted in, I want to be familiar with the way that so things that you'll find in the hunting laws are methods of take. So what caliber rifle do I need? What type of muzzleloader do I need? What powder is acceptable for muzzleloaders? Can I put a scope on a muzzleloader? Archery information. Can I use a crossbow? Can I only use a handheld bow? And arrow weights and speeds and that type of stuff is usually listed in the hunting laws. And then you're going to find all of your species information. So this is where you're going to find your hunt codes, all of that information that tells you things, the dates, the season dates, whether you have over-the-counter options, and the hunt code tables. Absolutely important there. So real quick, let's jump into the what's new at a glance for Colorado. Like I said, I don't want to go too in depth to this because I'm going to record a whole podcast about it. But just so you have an idea what's on this page, this has to do with that severe weather up here in the top left. This is the change that was made to those tag allocations and the tags. Non-resident license allocation. This was a big change this year that Colorado made. It used to be a 65-35 split, 65 for residents, 35 for non-residents on their tags, and they switched that to 75-25. So what's that tell me this year? Draw odds are going to change drastically. Things are going to be a lot different this year in Colorado because of that change right there. So now people that had 5 or 10 points going into something, maybe they're going to need 11 or 12 or 6 or 7 potentially for some of these units. And no change to the high demand hunts. It's still 80-20. High demand is 5 points or more. So actually my examples would not work, but it would be more for 1, 2, 3, 4 point type units. You're going to see lots of other important information in there. And then again, more important information is there are important dates for 2024. You can look through all of those. Very, very important stuff. The season dates, important. What was the other thing I wanted to hit here? Yeah. General input. We're just going to scroll down here a little bit. Planning your hunt. This one's important too. Gives you a really good idea to something to think about. If you're going to hunt in Colorado, do you have hunter education? But every state requires some sort of hunter education. Which species do you want to hunt? If you want to hunt elk, then you need to have a pretty good idea what units you can hunt in. If it's an over-the-counter unit, if it's going to be a draw unit, that comes into where do you want to hunt. Obviously, you're not going to hunt on the eastern side of the state for elk. There's probably some out there, but it's basically all private land out there in the eastern side. So you're going to be looking up in the western, up in the mountains. You're going to be looking in those areas. But that's important to know. When do you want to hunt? If you want to hunt during the rut, you know you're going to be pulling some sort of archery tag or maybe that over-the-counter tag. If you want to hunt with a rifle, you still have some over-the-counter options, but there's also some draw options. So things to look at as far as when do you want to hunt? What do you want to hunt with? Again, this is important to look in those laws because you're going to see what's required for muzzleloader, requirements for a rifle, or even a bow. Type of licenses you get. Every state is different here. This is crazy to me. Literally every state is different. Colorado, you're required to get a habitat stamp along with your license. Now, license is pretty standard in Western states. I mean, it's standard across every state, but different in Western states. What you see a lot of times is you buy a license and then application fees, and then later you buy the tag or the permit. And in most Eastern states, when you buy your license, that includes the tags that you need. So just be aware and read through that next section, which is licenses and requirements, and then read this brochure. Typically, if I draw a hunt in a different state that I'm not familiar, I even read the New Mexico regulation about once a year. But I will read that regulation a couple of times in a state just to know what I'm doing. Hunting licenses, terms, and definitions. You're gonna find a lot of information in there. Things, preference points, leftover licenses, these A, B, C tags. What are those things, right? I don't know what they are. I mean, I do, but it's because I've read this thing several times and I have a pretty good idea what I'm doing in Colorado, but you may not. So you're going to want to look through all of this terms and definitions. License options and availability. You need to know what you can get and how you can get them. And there it is. And then your fees that you're going to pay. You pay for your license up front. You got to pay. I mentioned this habitat stamp. You got to pay for that. And then you'll see your licenses for your what it's going to cost you for a deer hunt, for an elk hunt, that type of stuff. Okay. More license information. So there's just a ton of information in these things, right? Application and preference points. This is going to tell you how their application works and how their draw system works. Very, very important. Can you get refunds? Can you get reissues? Yeah, Colorado does have a refund policy, and you have to look into that. So last thing I want to get to, well, here's general information. This is also important. What are we hunting? That's what it looks like, right? It's kind of important to know. Usually you can tell the difference between an elk and a moose pretty easy, or an elk and a deer. You get down into mule deer and whitetail deer. Some guys don't know the difference when they get out there and they start looking. So it's important to know the difference between those two. Um, Yeah. So here's another important part. This is the one I really wanted to hammer on is the hunting laws. Again, this tells you what you need for center fire rifle, all of these important parts that you have to have. Muzzleloader, you'll see, and it's like some states do different things with muzzleloaders. You'll see right here in Colorado, if you want to hunt deer, pronghorn, or bear, conical bullets must be 40 caliber. To hunt elk or moose, conical bullets must be 50 caliber. If you have round ball bullets for deer, pronghorn, and bear, it's got to be a 50 caliber round ball and 54 caliber round ball for elk or moose. So you really got to pay attention to that, because if you think you're going to go up and hunt elk with a 40 caliber muzzleloader, one of these new inline muzzleloaders, you're wrong. You can't do that. You have to have a 50 caliber for elk or moose. You can't use pelletized powders. Down here, you can't use electronic or battery operated devices. So you can't have a red dot on the top of your scope or on the top of your muzzleloader. And you can't have scopes on your muzzleloaders. So there's a lot of information in there, tons and tons of information. I think it's absolutely valuable. Lots of youth opportunities. You can see all that. So, and then we'll get into this part here. So last thing we're going to touch on. This is the deer section. So it's broke out by species. And if you look in here, it tells you all of the deer dates up here in the top left. It's going to tell you about your tags over here, what kind of tag it is. This hunt code is defined a little bit better up in the top, but I'll tell you what that hunt code is. If you want to buy a point only, they have that option, and it talks about it here in the preference points. But if you want to buy, if you're looking at your hunt codes, when you put your hunt code down, let's say you want to hunt, let's go down here. Let's say you want to hunt in unit 7, right? It is an either sex tag, and it gives you the dates of the tag. But the way the hunt code is broke out is that the D stands for deer, E stands for either sex tag, 007 is the unit number. But you can see here that if you draw a unit 7 tag, you can also hunt 8, 9, 19, and 91. But the hunt code goes with 7. So it's deer, either sex, 007. 01 is the season. So you're trying to hunt first rifle season. And then A is archery. So there you go. Deer, either sex, unit 7, first archery. And then you'll see here, because you can hunt in 8 and 9 and 19 and 91. If you look at unit 8 right here, it says C unit 7. So there you go. That's how that hunt code breaks down. And then if you're going through this and you're wondering if this is a good unit, hey, is unit 20 a good deer unit? Should I apply for unit 20? Then I suggest that you check out Go Hunt and you look at their insider numbers. They have great application strategies and they have great hunting odds. And it'll give you a pretty good idea of what your chances are. Now, let's take a quick peek at New Mexico, because I want to show you how different these regulations are and why it's important to understand each one of these. So same basic information, but just different for the state, right? You go through here, you can see important dates, reminders, license requirements, over-the-counter stuff, draw fees. It's all the same information. You just got to know where to find it within the regulation. So they got all the administrative stuff. So here you go. Important reminders. They don't have anything new this year that I could find in their regulation, but what they do have is some of these important information like mandatory harvest reporting. This is kind of a big deal right here. Failure to report by the deadlines will result in rejection of all draw applications. Remember to keep your confirmation number. Now, you can still get in the draw. There's late fees that you can pay and you can get yourself back in the draw if you didn't do your harvest report in time. Other stuff here. This was a rule that was put in place a couple of years ago. Scopes were removed from muzzleloaders, so now it's only iron sights, and they keep it in there because it is an important reminder that needs to be reminded. So that is the way that that's set up for New Mexico. I was going to just really quick show you the difference. So one thing I do every year is I confirm my hunt codes. So what are we looking at here? We got deer tags. So you can see theirs are a little bit different. So an archery deer tag is going to be DER for deer. 2 is an archery tag, and then the hunt code that you need is 152. Here, DER is deer, 3 is muzzleloader. So any muzzleloader tag is going to have a number 3 with it. Any archery tag is a number 2. Any legal, which is rifle tag or any legal weapon that you want to take, is a 1. And then they identify their hunts as quality, high demand, or standard hunt. And standard is just what it is, standard. Quality is a pretty good hunt. Quality, high demand is a kind of, I put that on a very good hunt level. And then it gives you the number of tags in the unit that you're trying to hunt. So you can get a pretty good idea of how many other hunters might be in there. And then it tells you fork antlered deer. And some of these will say fork antlered white-tailed deer here. So if you see FAWTD, fork antlered white-tailed deer, there you go, fork antlered mule deer. So they're all different, and that's what I wanted to show you was when it comes time for these podcasts to come in and take a look at these. Let me stop sharing and go back to my camera. So when it comes time to look into these regulations, every single one of them is different. And it's really important that you go in there and that you understand what it is that you're looking for. Especially right now during application season, there's a lot of things that you need to be researched. If you hunted in a state 5 years ago, I can guarantee you that in a Western state, there's been a change that's been made, and you're going to want to research that and you're going to want to look into it. Some of those more recent changes will be reflected like in the New Mexico regulation, and you'll see that they have those important reminders there. Or if it's new, you'll see it like last year they had new, what's new for 2023, and that muzzleloader change with the open sights and the scopes, that change was in there and it was big, bold red print. This year, it's just an important reminder. So anyway, you can pick up these paper copies if you're in a state, and I like to have the paper copy available. I usually throw one in my truck for whatever state that I'm in when I get there, or every state has them available on their website. So make sure you take a look at that. And it's part of my application process. It's something that I do. I go to the state, I look at the regulation, I look at the hunt codes. I always like it when a state shows the number of tags that are available for a unit, because I typically won't apply for a unit that's got 300 or 400 tags in it. I'm just not going to do it. I don't want to be I don't want that much hunting pressure. So I look for hunts that are 100 or less, sometimes 150, depending on the unit and how big it is. But it's important to find. You'll also find other information on those state websites that are some of their draw information or their draw percentage, their draw percentages. So anyway, I hope that helps somebody to look through whatever regulation it is. Like I said, every state has one. You just have to go and look for it on the website, or you can call the state and they'll mail it to you. You can get them. I've had several states that have mailed them to me, but I just go online and I actually find it easy. A lot of times you can save it and you can hit Control F and you can do a search function and you can search for information too. But I kind of recommend going through and reading the whole thing. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope this helps somebody. I'm out of here.